Hello, fans of Yamaha synthesizer styles. Today we will get acquainted with how and why you would use the CasmEdit program. Before we move on to CasmEdit, we will do some preparation. Let's set up which Windows program we will use to edit MIDI files. To do this, find any MIDI file in Explorer. That is, a file with a MIDI extension. Right-click on it to open the file's context menu. In the menu that appears, select Open With. A submenu appears in which you must select an item called Choose Default Program. A small window like this opens. On your computer, it may look different, but in general, all the window controls will be similar. Here we see a list of Windows programs that can open MIDI files, and we see a checkbox that allows the selected application to be used for all MIDI files. We have to select some program. I have Sonar Producer installed. That's the program I would like to use to edit MIDI files. Make sure the checkbox is set and then click on the Sonar Producer application. The application opens and the MIDI file is loaded. That's it, the setup is complete. We close the program window and we proceed to study the CasmEdit program. The most common operation you want to do with a style is to change something in its MIDI part, or to change some track or some controller settings or effects. So let's start with that, with editing the MIDI part of the style file. So open a style file. This is done through the File Open menu. In the Load dialog box, we choose between different types of file. First, we can load a simple MIDI file. Second, a standard style file with the STY extension. And the third option is style files with any supported extension. Let's choose the All Files type and see what we have. Here's a folder with the tempting name Top Models. Let's say PSR 3000. So from the Yamaha PSR 3000 synthesizer. We choose the first folder and some style. This one. Here is where the selected style file is loaded. In addition, you can see that Casm section is loaded. Here is its length. You can also see that an additional part of the style is loaded with this length. All three parts of the style are loaded. In the window header, you can see the name of the loaded style. And here, in the main part of the window, we can see all MIDI messages that are recorded in the MIDI part of the style. What else is in the MIDI editor window? There's a list of markers right here on the left. You can see what markers are in this style. Any other texts available in this style are shown in this list of texts. By selecting any marker in the list, we can see which MIDI channels are used in that part of the style right here in this list to the right. Also, the current pointer in the MIDI part is placed on the specified marker. So we want to edit MIDI part of the style. The easiest way is to use the application that we assigned at the beginning. This is done as follows. Main menu, Edit, Edit MIDI in external DAW. The program we choose at the beginning will be launched, and this MIDI part of the style will be loaded into it. The program is opened, the MIDI data is loaded. And what happens in CasmEdit? The CasmEdit program says that it is waiting for the MIDI file editing to complete. Now let's get to the actual editing. Here they are, the MIDI tracks that are recorded in the style. Now you can change the MIDI data of these tracks. Well, for example, let's add a little something to the drum track number 10. So you can edit the file in any way that your editor allows you to. Other than the drums, let's change something else. Just for the sake of interest, let's insert one more marker here to check that everything has worked out. Let's add a marker. Let's call it test marker. Okay. That's it. The editing is done. Choose File, Exit. Save your changes? Yeah, sure. We didn't work for nothing. You can see that CasmEdit reloaded the saved file. You see here the system messages are in slightly different place, and some texts under Sonar turned into markers for some reason. By the way, here's our test marker. We will have to work a little bit to bring the modified file into normal state. You can see that we have sff1 and sint markers at the beginning of the file, but now they have been moved away from the beginning. So let's do this. Let's select this message, then holding Shift button, click left mouse button on this line. The messages we need are highlighted. Now cut those messages and paste them at the beginning. Paste. By the way, here's our test marker. It should be removed because we did it just for testing. Delete the current event? Yes, we do. At the same time, we will remove other unnecessary markers. There are a lot of them. Use context menu item. Remove markers that are not related to the style. Now everything is as it should be. We made some changes in the MIDI part of the style. Slightly corrected the 10th drum track. Let's also see what you can do in the MIDI part using the CasmEdit program itself. There are some useful functions here. For example, we select the menu item View Instruments. The Style Instruments window opens. CasmEdit checked all the tracks, defined a bank and an instrument for each channel. And we see the result in this table. There's the number of the instrument bank, the group to which the channel instrument belongs, and according to the loaded ins file, CasmEdit wrote out the names of instruments in each channel. But we see 3 blanks here. They are channel 2, channel 10, and channel 11. Why is that? The answer is that there are no banks specified in the style, or there are no instruments specified in the banks. Yamaha synthesizer will automatically pick up a replacement, but this replacement may not completely correspond to the initial intentions of the authors of the style. To solve the problem, double-click on the channel 2. Bank is not found. Default bank will be used. The problem is clear. My synthesizer PSR740 has no bank number 1024, and therefore there is nothing to select. But instrument number 17 should be selected. Automatically, the synthesizer will use instrument number 17 from the 0 bank XG bank 0, where all the instruments are. It will be this instrument. If you are satisfied with this solution, you can leave everything as it is. Or you can pick banks and see what's there. Here's a 24th bank that has tool 17. Bank 33 has instrument 17. We'll use the 33rd bank. Okay, we should do the same for channel 11. Choose bank 33 and instrument 17. In general, I'd like to remind you that when the style will be played on the synthesizer, channels from 2 to 8 will be redirected to the second half, channels from 9 to 16. Therefore, we can say with a high degree of certainty that these channels 2 and 11 will be played on the same 11th MIDI channel, and therefore it is quite logical that they have the same instrument. So there's only channel 10 left. It's obvious that the problem is not with the bank here. 16,256 is the XG drum bank, and it's definitely there. Double click on channel 10. Well, here's the problem. Here are the banks for my synthesizer model and instrument number 27, more precisely, set of drums number 27, and it's not present in my model. The PSR 3000 has this style, and mine doesn't. Instrument 0, that is XG standard kit, will automatically be used instead. But we can choose any other drum kit. Let's select the XG Jazz kit. Okay, that's it. The instruments we now have are in order. Let's close the Style Instruments window. If we've changed banks or instruments, it will all show up right here in these MIDI messages. This is the instrument selection. This is the bank selection. What else can we do in CasmEdit? We can work with almost all of the available controllers. In the search panel, we select Control Change and Channel 10. Let's start right from the first MIDI message. Next, Master Volume. Next, here's the Reverb Send Level control. 12, that's not much at all. Let's add a level. Double-click on the line. This opens a window for selecting a controller and its value. Let's not change the controller itself, the reverb send level, but let's increase the value a bit. Done. Okay. If the message of the desired controller is missing, you can insert it. Insert new MIDI event. Control change. Channel 10. Which controller? Well, let's select chorus send level. Add a little chorus to this channel. Okay. This way you can add any control messages you want. Let's look at another feature of CasmEdit. Working with effects. Right here in the system message box, there's a reverb section of type Hole 3. This is the message. I double click the line. A special effects window opens and shows the reverb effect tab. The reverb type is Hole 3. And below we see the controls of all possible parameters of this effect type with their current values. Since all of these virtual LEDs are grayed out, this indicates that none of the effects parameters are adjusted in the MIDI file. You simply select the Hole 3 effect type and use these default parameters. If we want to change Hole 3 to some other type of reverb, we have to do the following. First, we delete the current Hole 3 type from the file. To do this, press the Remove from MIDI button. The effect type selection is removed. You can insert another type of effect. Let's use Room 3. Select Room 3 type. The parameter list is updated. And here we can put in some parameters that you like. When you change the value of a parameter, the bright green LED here indicates that this parameter will be inserted into the MIDI file. You can also insert the default parameters into the file. To do this, just click on the LED, set it to on, and this parameter will be inserted into the file. Clicking again will prevent the parameter from being inserted into the file. Clicking the LED also resets the parameter to its default value. So we've selected the Room 3 effect type, set all the parameters we want to use when playing the style, and now we can click the Insert into MIDI button. There we are. All parameters are inserted into the MIDI part of the style. Here is the Room 3 effect type selection, and here are the parameters that we set. If you want to change these parameters, click on any line again. The effects window opens again, displaying the parameters of the Room 3 effect from the file. There they are, the parameters we've previously tweaked. You can change the parameters again and then do the same thing. Press the Remove from MIDI button. The system insert messages adjusting the effects that are removed. Then press Insert into MIDI. All the system messages you want are inserted. That's it. With this, we've covered the typical MIDI editing steps. Let's proceed to saving the style file. From the menu, choose File, Save As. There is one thing you should know about saving. If you save it in STY format by choosing this profile, the additional data of the third part of the style will not be saved. That is, only MIDI and Casm parts will remain in the style file. So if you want to save the data completely as it was in the original style, select a different file type. For example, the same extension of the original style. Choose a place to save and click Save. Saved as an SFF file. Now it's time to edit the Casm part of the style, which is what CasmEdit was designed for. Let's open some style. We see that the Casm part of the style is loaded. The Casm data length is 1318 bytes. To edit Casm, you have to press one of these two buttons. Those buttons are Casm and Casm 2. Pressing the Casm button opens an editor that can only edit SFF1 Casm styles. We won't consider Casm option. It is functional, tested, but more difficult to use than Casm 2. Those who have used CasmEdit previously know how to use the Casm editor, but I strongly recommend those who start using CasmEdit to always use Casm 2 editor. The Casm 2 editor is more versatile. It can edit both SFF1 and SFF2 styles. It is easier to understand. This is what the main editor window looks like. The information is presented in frames. Each frame contains the names of the styles parts. Main A, fill-in AA, and others. And the right side of the frame contains the Casm parameters. These are the lines. Each line is a set of settings for one MIDI channel in a file. In this style, 15 MIDI channels are involved, so we see all 15 lines. The first column of parameter named SRC indicates the number of the original MIDI channel in the file. I don't see any situation where this data would need to be changed. Think of it as of unchangeable data. But the second column, DST, sometimes has to be changed. It is the number of the MIDI channel where the MIDI data of the original SRC channel will actually be played. Only channels with numbers 9 to 16 can be here. And then there are the parameters that can actually be configured. The whole point of editing Casm is to set all these parameters. Let's look at them briefly. Name any text. Note mute. Mute the notes. Activate the context menu and select Edit. The note mute window will appear, and the marked notes will sound, but the unmarked ones will not. For example, let's remove the sharps. Okay. As you can see, the editing element has changed. Notice that these rectangles line up with the keys of one octave of the piano, and each rectangle is responsible for one note. You can adjust the muting of notes right here by clicking on those rectangles. The next editing item is chord mute. Here, too, each chord is one rectangle. In the same way, activate the context menu and select Edit. And here, you can use the switches to determine which chords belong to this MIDI channel and which do not. You can use pre-made profiles. You can save your edits in one of the 4 profiles. You can load saved profiles at any time. Next are 2 very important fields. These are chord root and chord type. These 2 fields actually determine the route in which the original recording in the SRC channel was made. The quality of style is largely determined by the correctness of this particular setting. Note that chord type is not just a minor, major, or 7th chord. It is one of many chord types. And depending on the selected type, the auto arranger processes the initial MIDI data differently. Editing itself is just selecting a variant from the list of possible ones. Let's continue. Auto start is the automatic start of playback. You can use toggle to enable or disable it. Read only prohibits changes. Next, there are two settings for transpose notes. These are NTR, note transpose rule, and NTT, note transpose table. To edit, select from a list of options. Next, the high key. This is also a selection from a list of options. Then there are two parameters, lower and upper limits of notes. Left click on the field to edit. In the window that appears, select the note and click OK. Do the same for the high note limit. The next parameter is RTR, which determines how the held notes will be handled when you change the chord. This is just an option selection. And the last parameter is for specific data, the meaning of which has not yet been deciphered. You can change this data. There are special windows for that, where you can change the length, the data itself. But I doubt you'll need it. This is how you edit any parameters for any channels of any style parts. The magic arrow allows you to undo all changes you've made to a string. I press it and everything returns to the way it was at setup. Let's consider now operations with frames themselves. What to do if we want to change some parameter only in main A and don't want to change the rest? Here's what we do. In main A frame, we invoke the context menu and choose the Create item. And in the window that appears, keep only main A and click OK. The following happens. Main A is removed from this first frame, and a new frame containing the main A is created. Here it is. Now you can edit only the parameters of the main A part of the style. The style parts included in the frame can be edited. Open the Frames context menu and choose the Edit menu item. In the window that appears, specify which parts of the style are associated with this frame. For example, let's add ending B. Successful. And here's another way of editing that allows you to make changes in a particular channel of all the frames at once. For example, we want to change the tone of the first channel from C major 7th chord to say D minor. Select the Assign SRC main menu option. In the window that appears, select SRC channel 1. Set the chord root checkbox. Select D. Set the chord type checkbox. Choose minor. Then click on the Assign button. All the first channels of all the frames are changed. This is exactly what we wanted. Now, let's look at the options for working with CNTT data. These options are located in two menu items. Action Add CNTT data and Action Delete CNTT data. The names speak for themselves. If your model of synthesizer supports CNTT data, then select the menu item Add CNTT data. You will get a new bus setting, and the choices in the Note Transpose table will change. If your model doesn't support CNTT, then select Delete CNTT data in the menu. If there are Casm changes, you will be prompted to save the changes when you close the editor. File, Exit. Casm section is changed. Save changes? Yes, of course. Now it's time to save the style with the modified Casm section. Choose a type, choose a name, and save. We've already looked at that. Let's also see how the Casm of an SFF2 style is different. We'll load the style and click the Casm 2 button. It's the same here, except there are a few more settings. Right here on the right side is the middle notes data. In addition to that, there is a high notes data setting and a low notes data setting. To show them, you have to click on the header here. It only changes the group of settings in this one frame. To change all the frames at once, hold down the Ctrl button on your keyboard while clicking on the header, like this. That's it. We've learned how to edit the custom part of the style. Now it's time to convert the style formats. This is a very simple operation. Load the style in SFF2 format and select the Create Convert SFF2 to SFF1 main menu item. A small conversion settings window opens. Here you can fine-tune the conversion parameters. First of all, you can adjust the conversion of entity tables, which are slightly different in these formats. When all settings are made, click OK and you're ready for SFF1. Let's save the style now. We already know how to do it. Now, vice versa, load an SFF1 style and select Create Convert SFF1 to SFF2 in the main menu. It also opens a small conversion settings window. There are fewer settings here. OK. This is it. We have SFF2. Let's save the new style just like we did before. The next operation we will consider is the creation of a Casm section. Load the prepared MIDI file. It already has all the markers we need to create the Casm section. Select the main menu item, Create Casm section. A window opens that shows all the source MIDI tracks of this MIDI file. Here you can see the instruments of the tracks and the instrument groups. There is also additional information about the notes on the tracks. Well, and our main task here is to select specific Casm section creation profile for each MIDI channel. That is, we must indicate what kind of tracks are in the file to the CasmEdit program. To do this, here in the rightmost column, we must select the correct assignment for each channel. There are only 6 options to choose from, and since you are the author of the style, you must know exactly what this or that track was made for. Once the assignment for all the tracks is done, you can press the Create Casm button. The Casm section for that MIDI file is created. If you need to edit the Casm, use the Casm 2 button. We already know how to do that. If you need a style in SFF2 format, perform an additional conversion by selecting the Create Convert SFF1 to SFF2 main menu item. You can save the new style to a file. File, Save. We already know how to do the next steps. Well, we have one more feature of the CasmEdit left to consider: editing additional data of the style file. For this, there is a special window called Style Structure. It can be opened through the main menu View Style Structure, or by pressing this button, Structure. Let's open some style. File, Open. Here the file has been loaded. We see the MIDI part in the window, and the style structure window shows all of the data that is in this style file in the form of these separate sections like this. Of course, there's the MIDI part. This is the length of the MIDI data. It also shows what parts of the style are in the MIDI part. All the parts shown by the text with colored backgrounds are present in the style file, while the gray ones are not. Below is shown what is in the Casm section of the style file, this section. Here we see that this style is in SFF1 format, that it has additional CNTT sections, and its style sections are divided into 4 groups like this. The OTS section shown below is the contents of the OTS part of the style, that is the one-touch settings. You can see that there are 4 OTS tracks in the style file with these sizes. There are no notes in these tracks, and MIDI channels 1 through 4 are involved in each track. Then we see the database information. This is the MDB section. It shows what songs the style can be suitable for. It shows the recommended size and tempo. And at the very bottom, the last section is the MH part of the style, the purpose of which is still unknown. If some section is absent in the structure, it means that there is no corresponding data type in the file as well. How is this editor useful? This editor lets us change any style section directly from its style structure window. If you want to edit MIDI part, click Edit MIDI in External DAW. There you go, the external editor is running. After we finish editing the MIDI, the data section is automatically updated. The same applies to the Casm section. We press the Edit Casm button, the editor is launched. We can also edit the MIDI tracks of the OTS section. Select the desired track and press the Edit OTS button. The OTS editor starts and the selected track is loaded. After making changes, press OK. You can work with these OTS tracks as with separate MIDI files. Possible actions are in context menu. For example, select track 4 and choose Export track. It is exported to a standard SMF0 file. Now let's delete track 4. Context menu. Delete track. Now let's add the track. Context menu. Add track. Select T4. The track is loaded. Next, we will work with the database. It can also be edited. Press the button Edit MDB. This opens the editor window. Here, you can add and delete records via the context menu, and edit here at the bottom of the window. Choose Add. A new record has appeared. We can edit it. Also, individual items can be removed through the context menu. Delete. OK. And the last section is the MH style section. The main problem with it is that we don't know what it contains. My computer is set up to open this section data in an external hex editor. I press Open MH in External Editor. Here is the data of this section. You can see that there are some uniform structures associated with the parts of the style. Here I see main A, fill in. By the way, here's some data for break BB, although break BB is not in the MIDI part of the style. Well, this puzzle is yet to be solved by anyone. After making some changes, save the style. There is one thing to consider. For our changes to be saved, we must keep the style structure window open. For our changes to be saved, we should not close the style structure window. The style structure window must be open while saving. Choose File, Save As in the main window. And then everything is as usual. Choose the file type and name of the file. But the data edited in the style structure window will be saved. The style structure window is very convenient and I would say pragmatic. You may keep it open at all times. In this case, it will automatically open when you start the program. In effect, it is sort of a convenient form of presenting the contents of a style file. In this window, you can create additional style sections if they are absent, or delete some sections. All this is done through the context menu. For example, select Create OTS. Here, the OTS section is created. Now we can add the tracks we want here. You can also create an MDB section and edit it. Using the context menu, these sections can be deleted. In general, this is all you need to know about CasmEdit's style structure window. Thank you for your attention.